IPMNation.com.
Auto sequence starts.
Matt Connarton Unleashed. 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 Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Welcome, everyone. Sorry about the pause there. I forgot to open the mic. Welcome to another edition of Matt Connarton Unleashed. It is just after 11 p.m. here in downtown Manchester, New Hampshire, coming to you live from Essence of Styling Souls. And I'm getting a text message. And sitting here tonight, my guest is Elizabeth Fitzpatrick Merrill. Welcome, Elizabeth.
Thanks, Matt. Nice to be here.
Absolutely. Thank you for coming in. And let's see. I'm going to make sure I open the chat room here because we definitely have some people listening online. And Elizabeth, you are the host, or co-host, I should say.
Co-host.
Of Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades.
Yes, new show.
Very, very provocative title. Hand grenades.
Well, it speaks to our humor.
Yes, absolutely. Can you tell us a little bit about what the show is about?
Well, I think what we're trying to do is really a tribute to Cheryl Marr's show and a continuation of her mission and what she did. We'd like to continue in the political vein, talk about all things political, social, and kind of just see what happens, fly by the seat of our pants. And your co-host, of course, is Gary Hopper. Gary Hopper, yes, New Hampshire representative. And what's cool too about Cheryl Marr, who you referred to, her show, the Marr Report, yes,
is still even though she's no longer with us, her show is still the #1 show on IPMNation.com, which is really cool. A lot of people are still
listening
from all over the country are still checking out the show.
That's wonderful.
So,
she would be so happy to know that.
Which is amazing, yeah. And Rock, Paper, Hand Grenades is already entered the top 10 as well on IPMNation.com. A lot of people are checking that out,
too.
That's
awesome.
So, absolutely. And hopefully we'll have some podcasts up of it soon. How did you get involved in the show?
Quite by accident. It's kind of an ironic little funny story. Just how did I get involved in the show? It was really Gary's idea. After what happened to Cheryl, I was thinking about it, I guess at the same time Gary was, and he kind of put out there who would like to help do a farewell episode, if you might say, and yeah. I said, I've been thinking about doing this as well, and he said, well, come on board and let's do it. Absolutely. And then so when who approached who about doing Rock Paper? Did he approach you and say, because that was the first time you had met, right, at the farewell show? Yes. Okay. Yes, definitely. I believe Mike Egan approached Gary, and Gary approached me about doing it. Gotcha. Okay. Well, and this is the first television show that you've done, definitely, Rock Paper, but you're and we were kind of talking about it off air before the show, you seem very comfortable in front of the camera. You're a natural. So. Well, I'm not aware of the camera. Right. I think I've yet to look into it and to realize it's there, so I'll make sure that I actually never see this, because I think once I actually see myself on camera, I'm sure I will jinx the whole thing and I will be ruined. No. But, and what... Well, actually, let me ask you this, because I'm really curious. Last week on Rock Paper, you mentioned that you were going to read, you had given yourself a reading assignment. You were going to read It Takes a Village by Hillary Clinton. Yes. And I'm really curious. I've always been aware of the book. It's been out for a long time, right? It's been out for 10 years. Yeah. But I've always been aware of the book, but I've never read it. Neither have I. Okay. I'm halfway through. Okay. Well, what have you got so far? What is I kind of have an idea of what she's trying to put forth with it, but what can you tell us about it? Well, I've been warned, because I thought I had an idea also of what she was trying to put forth. Yeah. And I had an opinion based on what I thought she was going to put forth. And
Yeah.
I'm mostly through the book, and I find it an easy read,
Yeah.
almost like a self-help book for parents,
Really?
which is not what I expected.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I find it, and Hillary Clinton fans are going to hang me for this, but I find it a very boring read. I
Yeah.
find that I'm impressed with the fact that she's very impressed with herself,
Oh, okay.
if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
So,
When you say that, I mean, does she use a lot of? Sometimes authors will use a lot of big words.
No.
To try to prove how smart they are. Is it that kind of thing? Or?
no, I feel like she pontificates.
Really?
There's a big word for you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good word.
So, she's not saying anything new. She's not stating anything that isn't obvious. The one thing that she is confirming for me that I suspected is when she says it takes a village. I generally agree with her idea that extended family needs to help the core family with whatever weakness is in that family. But she takes it a step further, and she translates that almost in every example she uses to government.
Okay.
Bigger government. The government needs to step in and help in adoption. The government should step in and help with the schools, and that's where I disagree with her wholeheartely. So we'll be talking about that on the show tomorrow night.
Okay. Very cool. Are you gonna have the book finished by then, or?
Oh, no, that's a stretch. I'm going to try. I may have to stay up late.
Yeah, you can fake it, you know.
Yeah. That's what they all say.
Yeah, but but you said you didn't necessarily expect that was what the book was going to be.
I expected it to be more political.
Oh,
and
okay.
she really soft pedals the political part of it.
Yeah. See, I would have expected that as well. Yeah.
Right. And she really sneaks in the government part. So it's, in that way, it's not quite what I expected. I was expecting more hard-hitting, more in your face.
Yeah.
And instead, like I said, it almost reads like a self-help book for parents. And I don't need that from Hillary.
Right.
Sorry.
And we had talked too a little bit before the show when we were talking about the book, and I'd made a comment that she's kind of won my respect in some ways. Right. But you don't respect her, is that correct? Or you don't care for her?
I respect her in many ways. I don't care for her. I would say mostly because of her connection with Bill. Yeah. Between the whole Monica thing, I don't appreciate her example, and I've got air quotes going on here, example of how a woman should put up with such humiliating public behavior. Right. And also, when she did her New York bid, they didn't even buy their own house. I had a huge problem with that. Yeah. That house was gifted by friends, rich friends. Right. I mean, I'm a little envious too, obviously, but I have a hard time respecting her political strength when she's standing on other people's money. Yeah, I remember people were calling her a carpetbagger and whatnot. Right. And and that kind of ties into why she probably, the theory is, of course, well, if you ask her, of course, she'll say, the official line is she stuck by Bill because, well, he's not perfect, but he's my husband, etc. But I think the general consensus is it was careerism. Absolutely. People called that. Even before Monica, people called that he was just a stepping stone on to her presidential bid, which in fact happened. Right. I have a theory that, let me put it this way. I would have been, now you're fairly conservative, right? I would say yes. So you would tend to not vote Democrat. You know, I'm not sure I would say that. I'm conservative with liberal sprinkling. Okay. I would say that I will vote for the most rounded and logical person. I was having a conversation the other day with someone, and I said, you know, why can't we have a businessman? Excuse me, business person. Yeah. Why can't we have a candidate like that? Mm-hmm. And I said, wait, who was that guy with the charts? Remember the guy with the charts? And he goes, it was Rossborough, and I'm like, him. I liked him. Yeah. So I will vote for the person that I think is the most logical. Well, let me ask you then, because I would have been more comfortable. Ultimately,
I voted for Obama, but I would have been more comfortable with Hillary than Obama as president. I think Hillary would have been a more effective president. And I have a theory about her. I think that she would have frightened people.
Absolutely.
In a positive way. Kind of the way.
Absolutely.
You know how people say that about Reagan. That Reagan was so effective in dealing with the Cold War and dealing with the Soviets because they were legitimately terrified of him. He kind of had that cowboy thing.
Right.
Going,
the buck stops here.
Yeah. He had a certain. He just had that. He projected that, and I think in a different way, I think Hillary would have scared people.
I have to agree with you actually on that. I'd never really considered that, and one of the things I also look for in a candidate is who do they keep company with. Mm-hmm. I did not vote for Obama. I didn't like who he kept in his company. One of the things I would really, really like to see in a future presidential campaign is I wish that we could know exactly who would be in their cabinet, who would be in their key positions. Mm-hmm. So I don't want to just know who their running mate's going to be, who is going to be in your top positions, because these are the important people whispering in your ear. Mm-hmm. We obviously know that the president is not making these decisions all by himself.
Right.
So I think you're right. I think she probably could have really been a ball buster, and she really would have made difference. Yeah.
The other thing, too, that I wasn't necessarily... The other aspect that I wasn't necessarily thinking about in 2008 when I voted, but that I think about now is I think she would have... I wonder if she would have handled the economy kind of similarly to the way her husband did. Because Bill Clinton... I don't know how you feel, but a lot of Republicans will acknowledge that Bill Clinton... in some ways was a highly effective president because he was more fiscally conservative. He actually left us with a budget surplus, for example.
Okay.
Alan Greenspan, in his book, when he was Fed chairman, he said that Bill Clinton was the best Republican president he ever worked for. Obviously, Clinton was a Democrat, but he was trying to make the point that Clinton's fiscal policy was actually relatively conservative.
Relatively sound. I think part of that also might have been because he came from a small town.
Yeah.
So I would agree with that.
Well, a Southern Democrat too is more conservative
well.
than say.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I actually in the primaries, I voted for Bill Richardson because he was kind of that liberal on social issues, but more fiscally conservative. He actually cut taxes in New Mexico. Of course, Bill Richardson didn't have a chance of getting anywhere. But for me, I've been disappointed with. I was thinking about it just today. I had hopes that Obama would be the centrist that I was looking for, and it hasn't really panned out that way.
It hasn't happened yet.
I was very unhappy with the so-called stimulus package. I agreed with bailing out the banks.
Right.
I think there should have been more conditions put on that, but I think that if we learn something from the Great Depression, it's that you can't take too many risks with your banks.
Right. You can't let them sink or swim. You've got to be there.
Right. But all this spending and, it's like, why doesn't it occur to these people to do anything for small business?
Don't we have college graduates and accountants in the government somewhere?
We do.
You would think so. You would hope so.
Yeah. But I haven't, so I've been disappointed with Obama. Now, so I assume you voted for McCain.
Actually, no.
No.
McCain came to the town hall in Derry, and I took my daughter, and we got seated right there around the square in the front row.
Yeah.
And I got to ask him a question, and he scooted it
Really?
and tried to throw it at, who was it? Who was with him? I forgot the name. It wasn't Biden, obviously. It was, I forgot his name. But he wouldn't answer the question.
Really?
Yeah.
What was the question?
I forgot.
Do you remember?
Too.
Yeah.
No, my question was actually, he kept throwing things out to, I can't believe I can't remember the guy's name. Senator. He ran in the last election.
Someone from New Hampshire?
No.
Oh.
No. And I asked him, I just said, you keep throwing these questions back at this other guy. Is he going to be your running mate? and he wouldn't answer the question.
Oh.
And so finally, the other guy, I wish I could remember him. I'm having a blonde moment.
Yeah.
But the other guy finally stepped up and said, "No, I'm absolutely not running this time."
Oh, okay.
And I know this will come to me like at 12:05. As soon as we're done here, I'm gonna the name's gonna come to me.
That's all right. That's interesting. So did you vote or?
I didn't vote, and I know that's horrible, but I really felt rushed.
Yeah.
And which is ironic because we always have the same amount of time, but I felt rushed.
Yeah.
And I couldn't make a good decision, so I just didn't do it.
For the record, I don't think that's horrible. I take a contrarian view on this. You know how there's always this big push, you have to vote, and there's all these, you see all these television campaigns and whatnot saying, it's almost like they guilt you into voting.
Right, get out the vote. You see the shirts everywhere.
Right. And I kind of have a slightly different position on that. I do encourage people to participate in their democracy, but I don't necessarily think that low voter turnout is always a bad thing, because my opinion has always been, what about the people who don't pay any attention and don't really know about the issues and don't really know about the candidates? Why are we pushing them so hard to vote as if they're bad people if they don't? If they don't want to vote, let them stay home. Leave the voting to the people who are sure about who they want to vote for. You know what I mean?
Well, either way, the majority is still voting.
Right.
So either way, it actually works in terms of percentages.
Yeah. I mean, with the electoral college system, certainly with the president in the presidential election,
right.
If you decide to sit it out, which you have every right to do, it's not going to throw the election the other way.
What, my vote did not throw the election?
Your staying home did not throw the election.
I'm disappointed.
Well, maybe it would have. Maybe if you had voted, John McCain would be president.
I hope not.
I actually would have, if the John McCain that had run in 2008 had been the same version of John McCain that ran in 2000, I would have been tempted to vote for McCain.
I would agree with you there. I would agree with you there.
I liked 2000 McCain.
I did too. I don't know what happened to him. He got older.
Yeah.
Like the rest of us.
Yeah. Well, I never held his age against him, but when we used to do a show here called Stephen James Blake, and that was the first ever talk show on IPMNation.com. And Steve unfortunately passed away last November. He had some health problems, but
I'm sorry to hear.
But he was a great guy, but very smart. But he made an observation that do you remember at one of the debates, McCain took a lot of heat for this because he was talking about something that he didn't vote for, but Obama did. But when he referred to Obama as that one, he said, I didn't vote for this, but you know who did? That one.
Oh.
And people got on him for saying, that was racist or something, which I felt bad for McCain because that clearly wasn't his intention.
Right.
But it was kind of weird that he didn't say, Senator Obama or Mr. Obama or something. He pointed at him and said, that one. But Steve said, you know what? And I didn't hear anyone else point this out. Steve said that his theory was that McCain had a senior moment, and just for that split second, couldn't remember Obama's name.
Oh my goodness, I never thought about that.
Yeah, because Steve was saying that when he was a kid, when his grandfather, because Steve had a brother and a bunch of cousins and whatnot, so at family gatherings there was a lot of kids there, and Steve said that sometimes when his grandfather, and you see grandparents do this, they they go to say someone's name, one of the kids' name, and I can't remember, they say, that one.
Oh, please. Are you kidding? At my house, I have 3 daughters, and there's a jar for each one of them on the counter.
Yeah.
And it's called the name jar, and every time I get their names wrong, I owe them $1.
Oh, no kidding.
And have to put it in the stupid name jar, so I totally understand that.
Yeah. So that was Steve's theory. But yeah, Obama and Palin was just... I don't know how you feel about her.
Yeah, the look on my face, the viewers couldn't see it, but I think I just threw up in my mouth.
Yeah. Well, now who do you like in the current field?
I don't know.
Yeah.
It's early, and I'm looking for that business person. Mm-hmm. Too bad Donald Trump isn't taking it serious. I was hopeful for a minute there. Seriously, I want somebody that's not in the political world so much. I want somebody who has a real world experience and thinking and expectation. we just haven't had that in a very long time, if maybe since Reagan, if not
Yeah.
ever.
Are you thinking maybe an independent would be?
I would love an independent.
Yeah, me too.
I would love an independent.
Me too. Basically where I come from politically is I'm an independent. I'm a sort of a recovering Democrat. I still...
Good for you. They probably have a 12-step for you.
Yes. Well, I tend to, like I said, I did vote for Obama. I tend to, if you add it all up, I probably still lean more left than right. But for a long time, I called myself a conservative Democrat. And
Okay.
I found myself, I used to tell people I'm about as conservative as you can be and still get away with being a Democrat.
Right.
You know, I could have just as easily passed for a very liberal Republican or a moderate Republican. Republicans don't like that word liberal. But like a lot of people who are kind of on the fringe of their party, you know, really, when you compare a conservative Democrat and a liberal Republican,
They're pretty much in the same spot.
they're the same. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
They tend to be fiscally conservative but socially liberal.
Right.
And that's me. I mean, I'm definitely a fiscal conservative. I like small government. You know, I think a government that governs least governs best.
The Jeffersonian government.
Yeah, absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. I mean, I guess I'm kind of a JFK Democrat, yeah, or I was. You know, like I said, I
You're
can't,
recovering.
Yeah. But I've always liked small government. But I mean, I'm liberal on social issues. I'm pro-choice. I'm pro-gay marriage. I'm pro-gays in the military. What else? I don't know. I mean, I believe in having a social safety net. I think it needs to be reformed, but I believe in having unemployment insurance and welfare and all that. I think society needs those things. So I'm still, I'm very liberal in those ways. But
Right.
But what drove me out of the Democratic Party was becoming a small business owner and an entrepreneur.
Yes.
I began to realize there is something bizarrely and frustratingly and just bafflingly sort of anti-business and anti-entrepreneur within the Democratic Party. It's just kind of how they're wired, and I just got to a point where I couldn't ignore that anymore. You don't hear Democrats use words like entrepreneur.
Mm-mm.
I heard Obama say it once. I was surprised he didn't choke on the word as he forced it out of his mouth.
Right.
You do hear Republicans.
You probably didn't even know what the word meant.
Probably not, But, they talk about workers and unions, and that's all good. I'm pro-union. I'm
Well, it's
liberal
part
that
of the
way, too.
big, giant government, the super government idea.
Yeah. But I don't, I have a theory, actually, that, and when I began to think about this, too, this also drove me out of the party. I realized, because Democrats love regulation, and they love, we're so over-legislated in this country. We have laws on top of laws on top of laws.
They like their fingers in every pie.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
And it occurred to me one day, I came up with this theory, and I have no statistical data or anything to back this up. This is just my theory. I could be wrong.
I'll let you know.
Okay. This is my theory, that if you were to take any law or any piece of legislation, either that's already on the books or that has ever been put forth,
Okay.
on any level, state, local, federal, any legislation at all that in any way strangles or inhibits business or discourages entrepreneurship, like some sort of dumb zoning law, because there's a million of those, or anything like that, anything that harms business in some way, if you trace it back to where it originated, who wrote it, who presented it, who introduced it, who passed it, I would almost guarantee 99% of the time it was probably a Democrat. Because that's how they think.
Sounds like the Pharisees.
Yes. Exactly.
That's a little scary.
Yeah. And that drove me out of the party. I just felt like, there's all these liberal ideas that I agree with, but then it's like, how can I be a businessman, an entrepreneur, and be a Democrat?
Well, I don't understand how anyone can be far left or far right anymore.
Oh, I agree.
I don't understand the black and white thinking. And I'm a
agree.
black and white thinker, but I just don't understand how anyone can be so far to the left or far to the right anymore.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I agree. That's why I liked Bill Clinton. That's why I think he was a highly effective president, because he governed really from the center, basically. He's fiscally conservative, but there were some, and even he didn't go nuts on the liberal stuff either. Like he agreed to don't ask, don't tell, for example. Liberals were very angry with him. They wanted, no, just make it gays in the military.
Right.
And he went with a compromise. He signed welfare reform he didn't have to be dragged kicking and screaming into that. Some say it didn't go far enough, but you know what I mean? He governed from the center, but there is no Bill Clinton figure out there now.
Right.
Both parties have become so polarized, and we're at this point where, you end up with, in 2008 we had Obama, who everyone assumed was probably going to be pretty liberal, and he is.
Right. We thought he'd be the firecracker to light up everything.
Yeah,
and then light the way. And
then you've got McCain, who seemed to be trying to present himself as this right-wing guy that he was not in 2000.
Right.
So you've got both extremes, and I mean, like I said, I voted for Obama, but it was like I was not enthusiastically, although there was a part of me though that did like that we were finally electing the first black president.
Right. The idea of it was very exciting, and
that
I agree
part's
with that.
cool. Yeah.
That is very cool, and it made me very proud of America for that
Yes.
purpose. And
Yes.
a lot of people were very excited, but he fell asleep at the wheel,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that's disappointing.
Absolutely. So what are you're more you're conservative generally, but you have some liberal tendencies.
Oh
is that
gosh,
correct?
absolutely, absolutely. I like to think that I'm open-minded. My background is such that I have seen and experienced a wide variety of life. So I find that much like Cheryl, I can recognize that my glass house is not the same as your glass house, and so I find myself liberal in that way.
Yeah. What are there specific issues where you?
Oh, sure. My religion, I happen to be a Latter-day Saint, which is
Okay.
otherwise known as the Mormons.
Yeah.
And that's pretty far to the right. But
Yeah.
but not me personally. I can look at an issue such as homosexuality, and what I think about it is not necessarily what my church would say about it.
Okay.
I have one of my best friends in life is transgender. Love her to pieces. I have no judgment whatsoever. That's between her and her God. And stuff like that. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm very liberal because it's not my place.
Yeah.
It's not my trial. It's not my place to decide what that is for her or him.
Sure. Sure.
So in that way, I would definitely say I'm liberal.
Yeah. Do you believe it's do you believe people are born that way? I mean, taking the judgment out of it, what's your personal belief?
I think definitely. I have known children
Yeah.
and their parents, and I definitely think sometimes yes. I think sometimes people choose. I think sometimes it's environment. I think it can be all of those things.
Yeah.
So.
But you think it can be genetic?
Oh, absolutely. I
Yeah.
think it can be.
Yeah.
But again, that's just one person's opinion.
Right. Right.
And I don't claim that it's anything other than just my opinion based on my experiences
Yeah.
with people that I know.
Now, were you born into the Mormon church? Or?
No, I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
No, my parents were horrified.
Really?
Yeah.
No kidding.
Yep. Horrified.
So what drew you to it?
Um,
And if I'm getting too personal, just,
oh no,
just
I'm an
tell
open
me,
book.
but- Okay.
No, it's no big deal. Let's see. What drew me to it? I had always been, I guess, spiritual as a kid. There was no religion in my house growing up, and so we moved almost every year of my life, and I would, kind of ask my mom if I could go to church, and she would just shoot me off with one neighbor and another neighbor, and she said, anybody but the Catholic Church and the Mormon Church. So where did I go? Catholic Church, and then when I was 20, I found the Mormon Church, and they were just able to answer my questions, and
Yeah.
it was a good fit for me.
Yeah.
So.
But you tried Catholicism?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
that's interesting. I was raised Catholic, but
You're in New England, of course you were.
Yes, I've since rejected it. But
again, you're in New England.
yeah, exactly.
Active Presbyterian, Episcopalian.
Really?
Oh yeah,
No
I've
kidding.
gone through many
Yeah.
before I chose.
What is it about the Mormon Church that spoke to you? Is that something you can put into words? I don't know if that's something you can verbalize
Oh,
or not.
absolutely. Okay, I guess the easiest thing for me, the main thing is that, and here's why your callers are going to start making angry phone calls.
But that's okay.
We all learned as children that Christ came to earth and he was baptized, and he organized the church with 12 apostles and taught specific things, and that he was crucified and all of that. And for some reason, all throughout my childhood, I had always thought, well, why would he go through all of that only to leave and no longer talk or communicate with us again, not to have prophets anymore whom we've had throughout time, not to have a church that was his, that was organized the same way as he did. And so that's kind of was my litmus test as I had gone through different religions. And so one day when I came upon this girl and I asked her if she was religious, and she said, yes, I'm Mormon. And I went, oh, just great. And was not ready for it.
Right.
And push came to shove, and I met the missionaries, and I asked them this one question. And they got all excited. And they're like, you're not going to believe this. And they said, we believe that. We believe that we do have continuing prophets throughout time, including in this day, and that we believe that Christ does have a church that organized the same way. So that's what it was for me.
Okay. And how long have you been a Mormon?
Well, I'd have to reveal my age, which then I'd have to shoot you and kill you. But let's just say about 20 years.
Okay. So now, does that involve, I mean, are you, sometimes people who identify themselves as being part of a religion aren't necessarily practicing. I mean,
I'm very active.
Are you? Yeah.
Yes.
So is it once a week that you go? Or
Definitely.
I know very little about Mormonism. Or...
You know, New England really doesn't. There's not a lot of members here, which is ironic because this is where a lot of the church was restored. But let's see, church is about, you'll love this, 3 hours on Sunday.
Wow.
Yes,
really?
it's big. We have sacrament, which is akin to Mass.
Yeah.
And then Sunday school, which of course most people have as well. And then we have the third hour, which is an extra Sunday school. And then we usually have activities during the week.
Wow. So the Mass itself is 3 hours?
No. The Mass is 1 hour.
The Mass is 1 hour?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
It's called sacrament, but it's just...
okay.
It's partaking of the
Oh, okay.
sacrament. So it's similar to what you do in Mass.
Okay. So, well, that's about the length of a Catholic Mass.
Yours is about 45 minutes, right?
Yeah.
Right.
From what I remember. I've been there a long time. Although...
is your mother listening? Does she know this?
Oh, my mother doesn't care. Believe me. But now, is it like with Catholic Mass, it's basically an aerobics routine?
It
Sit,
seems
stand,
like
kneel over and over again. Do you have that as well?
No. And I do miss the kneeling. People would be very, I think, pleasantly surprised to see how normal a sacrament meeting is. I think when you don't know a religion, and I can say this only because I've gone through so many in search of the one that fit me, that fit my style. And I'm not saying that my church or my religion is meant for everyone.
Sure.
It was meant for me. It fits who I am.
Yeah.
But I think people would be surprised at how comfortable and normal it is. A lot of churches have a lot of pomp and circumstance.
Oh, yeah.
In the building. We don't do that because we believe that your testimony, your salvation is between you and Heavenly Father. Not you and the Pope, not you and the pastor or the preacher or the whomever.
Yeah.
So in the actual chapel, you're not going to see crosses and artwork and gold and silver. It's very humble.
Yeah.
And then the art that you will see around the building are just very tasteful paintings of Christ.
Yeah.
So it's a very family-friendly, family-oriented, tasteful, mellow experience.
That's really cool because one of the things that really... There's a lot of things about Catholicism that bother me from what I remember. Again, I haven't been in a while. But one of the things that really bothers me is, you go into a Catholic church and there is a lot of that pomp and
right.
And yeah, I've often wondered if Christ were to come back and see the Vatican.
What would he think of that?
Yeah, well, I mean, he'd be horrified. I mean, that's...
all the money that is put into all of that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't he say, I would rather you have used that to feed the poor?
Exactly.
Exactly. I mean, yeah. I wonder that myself.
I admire that you, how should I put it? I admire that you kind of shopped around, for lack of a better term,
right?
For the religion that works for you,
right? That fit me.
Yeah, because one of my criticisms of one of my frustrations, I should say, with organized religion is that most people, now not all, obviously you're an exception, But I think most people, and I don't know any hard statistics, but most people, the only reason it seems to me that they believe what they believe is because that's what they were born into.
Right.
You know, in theory, I should believe everything about Catholicism because I was born into a Catholic family. And so that family, from the moment I'm born, tells me that this is the one true religion.
Right.
And this is what you have to believe. And if you believe anything outside of this, then you're
in trouble.
then you won't have salvation.
Right.
So you have to, this is the one true path. Well, how do we know this is the one true path? Well, this is what you're born into.
Because I told you it's the one true path, and I'm your mother.
Exactly.
You will listen.
Exactly. And I think that's a ridiculous reason to believe anything.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
You see that, I think to a much lesser extent, but you do see that with politics too. You know, if you're born into a liberal family, you're more likely to be liberal.
Of course.
If you're born into a Republican family, you know, you're more likely to be Republican. But I think with politics, that's much less the case. I think with politics, it's much easier for people to kind of question what their family believes and kind of form their own opinions.
Right.
You know, go to the other party or go to the middle or whatever it is. But I don't think it's necessarily the case with politics nearly as much. But of course, obviously, your family and your upbringing does inform to some extent how you feel. But I think with religion, it really bothers me that most people believe only because that's what they were told, and then they don't ask any questions. But people who convert, or people who look around and try to figure out what makes sense to them, I really admire and respect that.
Well, they usually have the stronger testimony also, because they worked for it, and they know what's on the other side of the fence, so to speak.
Right.
But when you're raising your children, to a certain extent, you want them to lean on your testimony. You want them to learn from what you know. Mm-hmm. And of course, we all want our kids to be mini-me's.
Yeah.
We want them to be better versions of ourselves. But at some point, you also want them to ask the big questions. Find out for yourself. If it's politics, go figure out what you believe and then stand up for it. If it's religion, pray about it and decide what works for you.
Yeah.
You know, if it's a moral code, go be the best person you can figure out how to be, and then teach others.
Yeah.
So at some point, you need to hope that your kids learned from your testimony and whatever it is your testimony was.
Right.
And then go build on top of that.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Does your religion, does that inform your politics at all, or are they kind of separate? You mentioned you don't necessarily believe what the church believes in terms of homosexuality, for example.
No, I wouldn't say that the church... To me, there's a difference, first of all, between the gospel and the church as an organization. Okay. To me, the gospel is the way Christ handed it down. It's the scriptures, and it's a perfect teaching, or at least, you know, as perfect as I can understand it.
Sure.
The church is, although given to us from a perfect being, is full of imperfect people, and we mess it up all the time.
Yeah.
So I feel like I need to make that distinction.
Okay.
But the church does not tell its members what your politics are. Never. It doesn't do that. The church does sometimes make a stand on a moral code, such as homosexuality. Mm-hmm. But it never tells the members, this is what we want you to believe. Okay. So they have made a stand, and this is what we think morally as the leaders of the church. But I have never felt oppressed or instructed or any of those things, because trust me, if I did, my big mouth, I'd stand up and say, hey, wait a second there.
That's good. So there's no, I mean, this might be a silly question, but is there, within the church, I mean, is there any encouragement to support certain candidates, like Mitt Romney, for example? Obviously, he's a Mormon, so does anyone ever say to you, well, that's, you know, I mean, obviously, I mean, I assume they don't.
No, they do not endorse. Okay. No, not at all. There, however, is a big sense of community. Yeah. So Mitt Romney would automatically get, I think, a support of the members in the church only because of that sense of community. Mm-hmm. I, however, am not sure whether he will get my vote, because last time he did some flip-flopping that really disappointed me. Yeah. So even though I feel like I know what his standards are, or at least what they should be, mm-hmm. Do I think I will vote for him? That's yet to be determined. Yeah. And no church is going to tell me what to do.
Yeah. Mitt Romney, by the way, is fascinating to me. I don't know what to make of him. It kind of, you know, I said earlier about McCain. If it was the 2000 version of McCain, and
Right.
if it was the same guy, I might support him. Oh, we have a call. I'll hold that thought.
It's Gary.
Hi, welcome to Matt Connarton Unleashed.
Yeah, the Mormon. This is Gary.
Hi, Gary.
Hi, Gary. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Hey, I love you guys. Hey, the Mormon Church would lose its tax-exempt status if it endorsed a candidate,
Oh, good
Ah,
point.
good point.
Good point.
which is a complete contrast to when we had the revolution, where it was the churches that were not only endorsing people, they were also provokers of the revolution and preaching against the king specifically. So we've come a long way from a society where the people from the pulpit were actually politically active and forcefully fighting for what they believed, to a point where the courts have muted that entire segment of the population.
How do you feel about that?
It's ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. I think you saw my post on Facebook of the original Sixth Amendment to the New Hampshire Constitution.
Yes, I did.
I didn't see that, Gary. What was that?
Okay, I think it's gonna. I always have Elizabeth read stuff out loud because I'm stuck at it.
That and you misspell things.
Well, no, this I didn't misspell.
I know. I'm teasing
Hey,
you.
okay. Give me 2 seconds.
All right.
I'll just give you the first part of it because it's pretty long. But just keep in mind, this is the first article, Article 6 of the New Hampshire Constitution.
Okay.
Okay, this is put into place and voted on about 3 years before the U.S. Constitution.
Really?
Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, so here it goes. Morality and piety, rightly grounded on evangelical principles, will give the best and greatest security to government and will lay in the hearts of men the strongest obligation to do subjugation. And as a knowledge of these most likely to be propagated through society by the institution of the public worship of the deity and the public instruction of morality and religion, therefore promote those important purposes, the people of the state have a right to empower and do hereby fully empower the legislature to authorize from time to time the several towns, parishes, and bodies, and bodies, corporate or religious societies within the state to make adequate provisions at their own expense for the support and maintenance of public Protestant teachers of piety, religion, and morality.
Well, that's interesting. Now, that was before the U.S. Constitution?
Yeah, about 3 years.
Well, that's
But
interesting.
it was written by the same people, in part, who wrote the Constitution.
Sure.
Well, I have a quote here that you'll like. It's by Thomas Jefferson. The First Amendment has erected a wall of separation between church and state. That wall is a one-dimensional wall. It keeps government from running the church, but it also makes sure the Christian principles will always stay in the government. And it was
Yeah, that was written to the Danbury Baptist Church in Connecticut. And what it was is the Danbury Baptists were Baptists in a congregational state and were concerned that they would be forced to abide by congregational rules religiously, and because they were so profoundly outnumbered. So the wall of separation that Jefferson was talking about was that the Baptists could not be forced to become Congregationalists or worship like the Congregationalists. And it was not intended to invert, that should have never been inverted to say that government should have nothing, have no faith or be based on any
Right.
faith at all.
Well, even James Madison said government should be based on the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, well, also, if you look at John Adams, he said that our Constitution is for a religious or a moral religious people only and can survive no other. In other words, if you don't have a certain amount of morality and Christianity in society, you can't have liberty.
Right, and you will not have a civil society.
And also, people might not know is that John Adams also wrote the Massachusetts Constitution, and in that Constitution, you had to have accepted Christ as Lord and Savior to serve as governor.
Yeah, but he liked to drink a lot.
No, you're thinking of his kid.
All right, my bad.
But anyway, I'll let you guys. You guys are doing a great job. I love you guys. Take care.
Thanks, Gary. Love you too.
Thanks, Gary. Call anytime.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye. Well, call anytime that we're on the air.
Yeah.
I think he knows what I mean.
Yeah. Call in a half an hour, we won't be here.
That's right.
But good luck with that.
No, I'm glad Gary called in. I'm glad he's listening tonight. Well, what do you think, Elizabeth? I mean, how much do you think? How should I put this? We talked about this a little bit on Facebook because you had mentioned the country being. How did you put it? I don't have it in front of me, but you mentioned the country being founded on
Christian principles.
On Christian principles.
Absolutely.
And my response was, well, I said I prefer to think of it as being founded on freedom, where you have the freedom to choose,
to not choose,
or to not choose if
right.
you choose to not choose. but what's I was thinking about this while Gary was talking, and do we need to make a distinction between? Is there a distinction to be made between having Christian principles and actually being a Christian?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. One of my neighbors, they're Muslim.
Yeah.
And I'm amazed at how much we have in common.
Yeah.
And although they don't believe in Christ, I believe they have Christian values.
Okay.
And they impress the heck out of me.
Okay.
And there are a lot of commonality between our two religions, Mormon and Muslim.
Okay.
And you wouldn't expect that unless you talk to them and you read and you compare and you listen.
Sure. Because there's a lot of people in this country who, well, it's actually there's two things on either side. You have people who will misconstrue some of that. You have liberals who will assume that when you say Christian principles, you literally mean being a Christian.
Well, you have people who will always take something out of context.
Oh, yeah. Oh,
you
absolutely.
have people who will always twist it for
Yeah.
their meaning and purpose.
Yeah. And on the other end of the spectrum, you'll have people on the far right who will misconstrue that and say, oh, well, if they're Muslims, how can they have Christian values? You know what I mean?
Right, right.
So, but what you're saying makes sense. And so it's not... I think it's important to make that distinction so someone doesn't think that, you're not making the argument that you have to be a Christian to be an American.
If you're Christian, you'll understand this. There's the letter of the law and there's the spirit of the law. And we're talking the spirit of the law.
Right.
There's the ideology of being a better person.
Right.
That's the Christianity we're speaking of.
Right.
Not necessarily the religion.
Okay. What was the other thing? Oh, there was something else I wanted to ask you on the show. I forgot what it is now, but it had something to do with
our conversation.
Our Facebook conversation. I can't remember what it was.
It was like
now.
an hour-long conversation.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was now too. I was just thinking about it.
My kids are sick of me laughing at the computer all by myself.
That's all right. Oh yes, I remember now. Of course, atheists.
Yeah.
You had posted something online about
the 9/11 cross.
Yeah, there's For people who don't know, who haven't heard about it, because the debt ceiling has totally dominated the news.
Oh, gosh, yes.
In fact, to the point that, and I was consumed by it, if you hadn't posted that story on Facebook, I would have totally missed it. But there's an organization, let me know if I have this right, there's an organization of atheists.
Correct.
Who are mad about...
Who are suing
the government over the cross.
New York City.
Who are suing New York City.
Right, because there's a cross that is erected on Ground Zero that is made out of the beams from the buildings from 9/11. Mm-hmm. And they are, quote-unquote, offended by it. And I wrote, when I posted it, and you saw this, I said, well, I'm offended that they want to take it down. So where does that leave us? They're offended it's there. I'm offended they want it left.
Right. And my position is, I'm not... And I think this is what I said on Facebook. I'm not particularly religious myself. I kind of haven't made up my mind about it all.
Right.
Some days I feel like a believer. Some days I feel like an agnostic. I never quite veer into atheism, but it's complicated. But
it usually is.
It usually is. But I even at my most agnostic
Right.
Because there are days when I look at the world and I think, come on.
We all have those days.
Right, you know what I'm talking
Absolutely.
about. But even at my most agnostic, I find these hardcore, I mean, look, if you want to be an atheist, be an atheist, but these hardcore atheists that take it to the extreme of actually being angry that anyone believes is bizarre to me. I mean, I really just want to say to these people, you know, get a
hobby.
Yeah.
How dare you put that in front of my eyes? How dare I have to see this thing that you believe that I choose not to believe? Yeah.
Well, you said it best. You said it better than anyone I've ever heard say it. And how did...
the hypocritical part?
Yes. Do you remember exactly how you... I'm trying to remember your exact wording because it was so eloquent. I think you said it's hypocritical of them to force their beliefs on someone just because they feel like they're having beliefs forced on them.
Something like that.
I think that's basically what you said, and I completely agree. Because you know what? If these people are truly atheist, if they truly believe that the cross means absolutely nothing...
It should have no effect whatsoever.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
They should walk by and go, oh, pretty, and keep moving.
Right. Why would they... Yeah, exactly. Why would they care? It shouldn't even matter to them.
Absolutely.
I mean, that's like, you know, to be offended by that, that's like saying, you know, if I don't like Bruce Willis, I don't want to see a billboard promoting his new movie. I'm offended by that because I don't like Bruce Willis.
So I'm going to insist they take it down.
Yeah, I don't want Bruce Willis forced on me, you know?
Right, right.
Weird example, I know. And actually, I like Bruce Willis as an actor.
Yeah, he's all right.
But, you know, I don't understand what their problem is. You know, I mean, I get it. I get this part. I understand why they don't want prayer in school. And I agree with them. I'm liberal on that. I don't want prayer in school either. Because I do believe in the separation of church and state.
Right.
So I'm fine with that. But it's like they want all references to God and, you know, Christmas. They want to call it Xmas or whatever. I mean, they just take it to such an extreme. And it's like, why do they care? Why do they care? And I even understand to some extent, there are people who believe... Have you ever seen the movie Religulous? Bill Maher's movie Religulous?
No, I haven't.
Bill Maher... he did this documentary, and it's all about why, you know, he believes that organized religion is all fake, but even he isn't an atheist; he's an agnostic.
Right.
And for any listeners who don't know the difference, because some people don't know, they think it's the same thing.
No, not at all.
An atheist says there is no God. Period. I don't believe. An agnostic says
I don't really care.
Right. I'm not. Or they say I'm not convinced. I'm not convinced one way or the other.
Right.
I see no evidence or proof, but who knows? Maybe.
Right.
Basically, an agnostic says maybe, an atheist says no.
And a deist, I'm not saying that, deist says there once was one, but he's walked away.
Yeah.
And I don't care.
Right. Which is an interesting theory. I get the logic behind that too, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But where was I going with that? I don't know where I was going with that. But I just don't understand why these people have to be so uptight about it, and why. I mean, because there's no practical way to completely eliminate God from everything anyway. What do you do? What do you do about money? Right.
Right.
I mean, what do they do when they look at a dollar bill? Do they freak out and?
I refuse to use U.S. money ever again.
Yeah.
Well, it got us into that conversation about why did they come here? Why did they live here? It's like me moving to France and being offended that people speak French to me.
Yeah.
Why would I do that?
Right.
To me, does that even make sense?
Yeah, of course.
Translate?
Yeah.
I mean, so to me, it's kind of ridiculous that people, as I said online, this country was founded on those principles. Mm-hmm. We came here for that very purpose. They shouldn't be so easily offended.
Right.
Because I don't think anyone should be easily offended, because it's kind of annoying.
Right, exactly. Everyone should be free to believe whatever they want, and there's no reason why it's not being... There's a difference between, and I think I said this on Facebook, there's a difference between being exposed to something
or
and having it. Right, and having it forced on you. You know, being exposed to something or seeing something expressed is not the same as having it forced on you.
Right, that's what you said. Just because someone expresses it doesn't mean I'm trying to shove it down your throat.
Right, exactly. That's why, like I said, I understand the prayer in school thing. An atheist doesn't want prayer being forced on their kids. That I get.
But does that mean they don't have to listen to it? I understand not requiring children to... I don't even know how I feel about that one yet.
Really?
Yeah, I'm actually on the fence.
Yeah.
I'd like my kids to be exposed to it, just like that intelligent design.
Yeah.
I would like that actually taught in schools, because I would like the kids to have that option of understanding that there's more than just the Big Bang Theory.
Right.
But I don't necessarily want one to stress one or the other. I just want all the options covered.
Right.
So, I mean, do you feel that way about prayer in school? Can they listen to it, or should we not even let the kids hear it?
I think it gets tricky.
It does.
I think it gets tricky practically. I don't necessarily disagree with the concept of that, but then when you try to practically implement that, how do you do that?
Yeah. Which religion do you pick? What language do you pick?
Yeah,
that's true.
that gets tricky. The intelligent design thing gets tricky. I don't necessarily disagree with that either, but the thing about that is, I actually got into this with Cheryl once on the Mar Report. The thing is, when I hear people talk about, well, intelligent design should be taught side by side with evolution, the tricky thing about that, practically speaking, is how do you, with evolution, you can teach all this. We have all this information that you can teach, whether you believe it or not.
Right.
We have all this information you can teach. How do you teach intelligent design? I mean, really, intelligent design, to me, that can be covered in a couple of sentences. Some people believe that God is guiding all of this, but how do you
explain that?
Exactly. So I don't see how, even if I bought into intelligent design, and I think it makes sense, I understand the logic of it.
There's so many shades of gray. How do you explain all those shades of gray
Yeah,
in a way that
it's just-
somebody's going to understand it?
That gets tricky, practically speaking. So that's another one where I'd rather just, if the parents want to tell their kids that, fine. But
These days, the parents aren't telling their kids anything. Which
Yeah.
leads us back to Hillary Clinton and
Yes.
the book I'm not quite reading.
yes, but I look forward to hearing about that tomorrow on Rock
Well,
Paper
we should
Scissors.
have some interesting guests. I'm actually looking forward to it.
Are there guests tomorrow?
Yes.
Oh,
Gary
good.
has lined up 2 very interesting guests.
Do you know who they are? Or?
No, not really.
Okay. All right. Well, it'll be fun to find out.
Yes, it
It'll
will.
be an adventure. Well, we're a little. We're coming up on midnight. The show always runs over. But Elizabeth, thank you very much for being here with us.
Thank you. I had a blast.
You're welcome back anytime. This was
You
great.
just say when.
Absolutely. And we should mention rock, paper, hand grenades. I think a minute ago I said rock, paper, scissors, didn't I?
No, actually, you didn't.
Maybe I just said rock, paper.
That's what the brain says,
Yeah.
though. I have to think about it.
Yeah, exactly. Rock, paper, hand grenades is on 6 p.m. on Wednesdays Eastern time.
Correct.
Because people can watch it online from anywhere in the world, so we have
Oh, wow.
we have to remember the Eastern time, and hopefully we'll have some downloadable podcasts up soon. I'm working on that, and then it replays several times throughout the week. And also, too, do you want to mention your photography business?
Oh, sure. Let's see, on Facebook, it's Elizabeth Merrill Photography, and you can also find ElizabethMerrillPhotography.com. It's just
very good.
something I've been doing the last couple of years, and a lot of senior portraits locally here in southern New Hampshire.
Excellent.
Thanks.
All right, and for anyone who wants to relive all the glory of tonight's show, this will be available for download in about 30 minutes. You can download the podcast and keep it forever and ever and treasure it as I hope everyone does as much as I do.
I'm sure they will.
Excellent. Excellent. Elizabeth, thanks very much for being here with us.
Thanks, Matt.
And we'll see you all next week.
Good night, all.